What up, guys? So a lot of you guys on the channel always ask about side control escapes. You struggle with them. I've got a few on the channel already, but I figured what we would do today is do kind of almost a continuation of the why your guard retention sucks. And today's video is going to be why your side control escapes may suck. Again, not a reason why they suck. I'm only going through a little over a handful of tips for you here, but these are some big ones that are really useful to me back in the day and really useful to my students. Hopefully these help you. All right, guys, so let's take a look at the first tip. So first things first, a lot of people with their side control escapes, right? To me, side control escapes start from the tail end of the guard retention situation. And a lot of people, they don't know when to like make the retreat backwards to a good defensible position. So what happens a lot of times, this is really common with like white belts from like lots of positions, but they'll do this like, no, I'm not gonna give this up. And then the guy gets head control, they're like, no, you're never gonna get it. Oh. And then they eventually get smashed. And they're laying here and they're in such a terrible position, and now they have to fight for this, right? This is similar to like newer grapplers when they play back mount. So like, let's say if I've got back mount, I'm a newer grappler, and my partner, my opponent's getting his shoulders down, and I'm like, no, I want back mount, I'm hanging on to it. Right now, I should be saying I've lost back mount and shoulders are on the mat. I should just come up to mount and preserve dominant position. But they hang on too long, and then eventually this person on the bottom turns over, and then is able to get back on top of them, right? So the first thing that we'll share this is, again, you don't want to be late with setting up your escapes. You want to be setting up your escapes early, and you want to think about like, what's the next step? Where is this going? And again, that can be tough, you know, as a new grappler, that sometimes it just feels like this whirlwind of stuff happening. But what you can think about is when you find yourself in situations here where you're pinned down, and you can feel your arms are getting tired, you can just feel that you're losing this battle, then what we want to do is we want to retreat backwards to a better defensible position like the iron squirrel here or whatever it is, and make sure that we deny this person the underhooks and the crossface. So the next idea, guys, is that a lot of people early on, they make this mistake of trying to push away instead of move away. So understand the purpose of the frames in like a side control or any escape position, right, when we're on the bottom. When I'm here, if I'm pushing with my arms or my hands, whatever I'm doing, whether he's far away or if he's in really tight, these frames are like the frames of a wall. They're there to hold something in place. And so something you see early on is people try to push away from people, right? But when you look at a good person escape, like watch me just do this movement. I move, he doesn't move. Again, you got to think about it, right? Like he's laying on top of me, like gravity's in his favor. Everything position-wise is in his favor to be strong and heavy. I'm not going to be able to just bench press this person away unless I have some massive size difference to this person. And that's not going to be helpful because, again, if your way of escaping positions is bench press, you're going to get tired eventually. So what we want to do is we want to hold the person in place and we want to move our bodies away, right? So as you think about this, for a second. So whether we're out in these longer range positions where they haven't passed our guard yet, we're thinking about shrimping out, bringing our legs in front of this person, or even if like he gets into a really tight position and I manage to get an underhook for like an underhook escape, I'm not going to try to push him up. I'm going to start to bridge and then move my body out from under him, right? You can even think of the ghost escape. We're here, where he's here in this position. My body is moving. I'm not trying to move their body. And again, that's one of the biggest mistakes I see from a lot of newer people is they're trying to push people away instead of moving their bodies away from the other person. So guys, the reason why your side control escapes may suck a little bit is that you don't actually think about what the person's trying to do to you in side control and then try to not let them do that. Right? You're just sort of pushing haphazardly and hoping you get your guard back in front. So think about it this way. If we're in a position here where Brandon is trying to get to side control, what exactly does he want? He wants an underhook, and he wants to have the crossface here, and he wants to be able to get chest to chest possibly. Maybe he wants to switch his hips here and like that, but he wants to have my shoulders pinned, and he wants to have control of this inside space with an underhook and a crossface. That's your most common one, right? There's some other variations like Kazuri, Kesa, Katami and stuff, but this is your most common one, right? So understanding that, what do we try to do on the bottom? We want to make sure that the person does not get there, right? And so one of the things that I show a lot of my students early on is when we start working on escapes is teaching them, one, if you lose everything, if we can get into situations here and block the underhook and the crossface, even if you are flat on your back, you'll be in a good spot. at least to start to set up escapes, because this is far more defensible than this. And so you want to think about that, right? A lot of times in jiu-jitsu, we want to deny the person what they want, right? I mean, if anything, you want to think about this. If the person wants this hand, they keep grabbing my wrist, well, then I don't want them to have that wrist. If they keep grabbing this cross collar, then I don't want them to have the cross collar. If they're playing half guard and they're trying to pull me to half guard, then I'm going to do standing guard passing because it's hard to use half guard there, right? You're always trying to, not always, but in most cases, you're trying to deny your opponent or your partner the stuff that they need to make their techniques work. And so if you have someone that's passing your guard, you want to make sure they do not get that underhook and they do not get the cross knees, because those are two big parts of the side control that they need to flatten you out on your back and then go to work and hold you down in that position. So another reason people's side control sucks, especially in the beginning, is that they don't know the right time to initiate the escapes. So let's say that Brandon here is in side control on me, right? There will be times where the person is going to be squeezing really hard, and you're going to have to like do things to help sort of alleviate pressure, like pulling back the shoulder or something like this, but it's not going to be the right time to escape. So for instance, like even like if I have like a newer person, if they're there, sometimes they'll be squeezing and I'll feel this almost like tenseness in their arms. If they're squeezing as hard as they can, this is not the time to escape. Again, unless the timer's going, you know, and I'm trying to escape out of this to match or something, I'm going to relax here. Because if he's squeezing that tight, there's typically not a lot of movement available to him, which means that I'm not in danger. Where I'm more worried about it is if he starts to loosen up, where he might start to advance position or start to go for an arm of some sort, right? Whatever might be going on, that's going to be a little bit more dangerous, right? So if you feel like you're in this position here and the person is squeezing you really tight, then again, just relax a little bit, chill out. If the shoulder's coming right down in your face like this, you can try to pull this back and just alleviate some pressure, but chill out a little bit. And you want to wait for the right opportunity to go. And a lot of times, one of the best times to go is when you feel this person just loosen up just a little bit to try to start to set up a submission. You might be able to set your frame up to begin the shrimps, or you might be able to get your underhook underneath of here to set up your underhook escapes. One more additional thing is that, again, when we're talking about initiating escapes, we don't want to initiate an escape when this person is in a nice, strong position, right? So what do we want to do first? We want to get them off balance. We'll talk about that later in the video. But again, if this person's sitting on top of you here, this isn't the right time to escape, right? We need to do something with this person's body to get him out of the spot where he feels nice and comfortable and strong and get him off balance. And again, we'll talk about that in just a second. All right, guys, another reason why people side control escape struggle early on is that they don't think about it like every other position in jiu-jitsu, right? Like, so for instance, with an offensive position like the guard, when we think about the guard, you will see this very sort of methodical and chained approach to it where, okay, maybe I'm going to off balance the person to get him to post, and then I hook this arm, and as I'm coming back and going for the straight arm lock, it's not working, no problem. Corkscrew arm bar here. He rolls through for me. I'm trying to finish it. I can't do it. So I switch to figure four, pull him to back. There's this whole chain of events that can transpire from that one thing, right? But then you see people from their escapes, and it's like one thing at a time and nothing's chained together, nothing's sort of processed out. It looks like this, right? It's like, okay, he's on top of me. Frames. You know, and you see this slow withering of this person as they die in this bottom of this position, as they get tired from doing the same thing over and over again, instead of saying, well, I need to off balance him, or maybe I'm able to off balance him a little bit, but I can't make enough space, but I've got the space for the underhook, and you could chain like multiple options together, right? And so that's an idea that you want to think about with your escapes. With your escapes, you want to figure out ways where, again, you think of them any other way that you would with any other position. There's a process for it. Again, you get into the position, you use a particular escape. If that doesn't work, then you do this. And if that doesn't work, or if it does work, then you do this, right? That's the whole way you develop a style or a system or a method for your jiu-jitsu that everybody does, right? Whether they know it or not, it becomes an if this, then that, right? If I do this, and this person does this, then I do this, right? That's a lot of times how we teach. All right, we're going to do this, guys. And when this guy does this, boom, we'll do this. Because in most cases, you're going to have really similar responses, over and over again. And that kind of allows you to detail. But that's the idea. You want to treat this like any other position in jiu-jitsu, and you want to have a process for it. So guys, another reason why people side control escapes may suck is that they look for too many different escapes, instead of looking for making the few escapes that they have work better. And again, this kind of is just like every other position, why people treat escapes kind of differently. When you think of a lot of other positions in jiu-jitsu, right? Let's say, for instance, let's say if you have a really good armbar from guard, right? Like your armbar from guard is amazing. Well, then you're not going to go develop like a bazillion other things necessarily. I mean, you could, that's fine. But what are you going to probably do? You're going to figure out a million different ways to get to that armbar. Or let's say that you're really good at half guard. Well, instead of saying, well, I'm good at half guard, so now I need to get really good at inverted daily heavers. You're not going to say that. You're going to say, well, how can I get to half guard as many times as possible during a roll? Or how can I bring people into that position as many times as I can to make people play the game? And so with side control escapes, I've got a few, but really there's two main ones that I use, right? And again, it's mostly the frames and the shrimps and the underhook escapes. So again, for me, instead of trying to learn a bazillion different side control escapes, right? I don't think that's necessary. It hasn't been necessary, and I don't have any trouble getting out of side control from most people. Most of my escapes start off with frames and shrimps, meaning we're in a position here where we're framing with our hands or our elbows, and we're moving through to either bringing our legs in one way or another to get back to our guard, right? So that's sort of the first family, if you will. And that can be done from a far position, or if he's close to me here, then again, instead of saying we have to have some special escape here, well, it's like, no, we just have to figure out a way to do the same stuff that we've already done before to get there, right? So that's one, right? Frame and shrimps. And then the other one is figuring out ways where, okay, well, what happens if that doesn't work? Well, now we can figure out ways where we can get underneath and go for underhook escapes, and that sort of family of escapes. And so what I do, instead of trying to, again, find a million different escapes, but I'm good with about 3 escapes, right? These 2, and then plus there's one shoulder roll that I didn't just show. And again, my goal then is not to simply find a bunch of new ones. It's to like find a bunch of different ways to make those work and to use those over and over again. And again, for me, that's been very effective. And I think that could be effective for a lot of people because it kind of makes the menu a lot smaller. Instead of looking for a million different situations, you're just looking for, well, how can I make this thing work in these situations? And you just keep going back to the same technique that you already know over and over again. Makes the menu of jiu-jitsu much smaller, and a lot of times can add a little bit of focus and make you much more effective at escaping. All right, guys, so another reason why your side control escapes may not be the best is that you don't have ways to off-balance the person on top. So as an example, we talked about that, if this person's in a nice strong spot, that this isn't the best place to start initiating their escapes, right? So what do we want to do? We want to do something to get them off balance. And so there's a lot of different ways to do that from side control. For instance, if I feel the pressure coming into me, I'll use a leg pendulum here to off-balance them to set up posts, which can give me a frame here if I want to do frame and shrimps, or give me the underhook for underhook-based escapes. Also, too, we can start to sometimes use a bicep, like sort of crossface or bridge. So if maybe he's here, I can start to push and bridge him off balance. And then that can give me some space here, or can even give me enough space where I can start to bring my legs in. If for some reason you have underneath here, we can even in some cases use this frame and bridge just like so, just to get this hand on the inside. So now we can get into the iron squirrel. But again, one of the things you want to think about is that like most moves, typically, we're always trying to create some off balancing for the person that we're going against, right? And so it's the same in the bottom of side control. When you're stuck there, you'd like to get this person out of this position where they're nice and comfortable, they're in balance, and all they're thinking about is submitting you, or how to set up their submission, or how to move to mount or back mount, and you're getting them to think, oh crap, I'm off balance, let me post, let me adjust. Because again, that's typically where you want to begin to initiate your escapes from, when the person's off balance. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you guys got a couple ideas that might help you with your side control escapes. Also, shameless plug, I'm getting ready to release a side control escape series, probably sometime in June, possibly July 2024. And on the initial launch of it, I'm going to be working with the people a little bit more one-on-one in a group sort of coaching setting. If you're interested in working a little bit more with me one-on-one in that sort of that group coaching setting on your side control escapes, then look in the links below. You can put your email address in that next page. I'll send you some free stuff just as a thank you for joining up. So guys, thanks for watching the video, and I'll talk to you next time.